Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. I will keep monitoring the participant log and let people in as they show up. But this morning, we're really excited to have Deborah Knoll from the Tennessee Department of Education and Brandy Stroker from the Tennessee STEM Innovation Network here to talk about computer science in Tennessee. So this is a great continuation of the conversation that started yesterday with our keynote speaker. Brandy is director of TSIN, as I mentioned, and she is a veteran educator with over a decade of 6th through 12th grade science and STEM teaching. And she is also the recipient of the Tennessee Science Teachers Association Excellence in High School Science Teacher Award. That was Brandy. Deborah Knoll is Director of K-12 Programs and STEM Initiatives for the Office of Career Pathways in the Tennessee Department of Education. And something really cool about her is that she's a graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy. And she has a BS in Maritime Transportation and has been working in education for quite a while now. She was actually in the classroom for 12 years before she joined the Tennessee Department of Education. So we have a fantastic group of speakers this morning, and we're really looking forward to hearing from them. So I am going to just go ahead and turn the floor over to them.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good morning, everybody. I see so many familiar faces.
Except I need to interrupt. I forgot one important thing.
Okay. No problem.
One thing I forgot to share is that we are recording this session, so we will be sharing that back out through the Hub's website later via our YouTube channel. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that you can ask questions through the chat box, and I will be monitoring those, so we will have Q&A at the end, and I'll facilitate that. So in any case, now, sorry, I'm really truly turning it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, and we've actually built in some question spots throughout too, so we can kind of break it up and take questions as we go. But I just want to say good morning. It's so good to see all of you. Stephanie, thanks for including us in this conference. The work the West Tennessee STEM Hub does regionally is phenomenal. We just appreciate everything that you do for teachers. And I just want to say there's a special place in my heart for West Tennessee because all of my teaching experience has been in Shelby County. So glad to be on the line with you guys today. So we'll jump right in. I wanted to go ahead and give you our contact information up front, and then we'll post this again at the end. But just in case you guys have questions as we go along, a little bit about our partnership. So the Tennessee STEM Innovation Network is a public-private partnership with the Department of Education and Battelle. And Battelle's a research and development firm. And we really work to expand STEM across the state, and that includes computer science. Our partnership with the department is fantastic. I think our work is very synergistic. We align everything that we do to the department's STEM strategic plan. And I think Deborah and I are both, just go-to resources for you, anything related to STEM across the state. So I just wanted to start with talking about the approach to computer science in Tennessee. So it's a three-pronged approach, but it really started with the Code.org professional learning program maybe 4 years ago. So the Department of Ed was the code partner for the state, really just trying to get computer science training available to teachers. And through the code program, there are elementary, middle, and high school opportunities. And we've kind of transitioned to help lead that work with the Department of Ed. So if you're interested in that, we can give you more information. Just shoot me an email or ask the question in the chat. It's currently closed for this academic year. It's a pretty big year-long commitment, but it's a really great place to start for teachers that are looking to receive the employment standard for computer science. And we can answer any questions you have about that, as we go along. And then from the network perspective, we were looking at how can we support the Tennessee Department of Education as they roll out the new K-8 digital readiness standards, which are the computer science standards. And that's where the training that we're really going to dig into today came from. So this is for K-8 teachers, and it's really hyper-focused on computational thinking and computer science in ways to integrate the standards into what you already teach. And then the last piece is the CSTA. So we were at a conference somewhere and we saw the map of the United States, and all of the CSTA chapters, and Tennessee didn't have one. We were the only state in the southeastern region that didn't have one. So we've really pushed the work to get a CSTA chapter started. Happy to announce that that is now live and available, and we will, I'll put the link up towards the end if you want more information on joining that. It's a great opportunity for having a community for computer science teachers to ask questions, share resources, and all of those things. So that's kind of where we're at as far as our partnership with the department and everything that we're kind of pushing forward related to computer science. But I know we're going to start with Deborah, and she's going to talk a little bit about the policy lens and where things are moving at the state for CS.
Yes, thank you, Redney, and good morning. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for having us today. We're really excited to be able to share this information out. So just to kind of give some perspective before I get to this slide, when I came to the department back in 2015, we really had a very, not a very engaged audience as far as computer science and STEM goes. We were just starting up our partnership with the TSIN. The governor, had our STEM Leadership Council, so we were starting to get our wheels on the ground. We finally got momentum about 2016 when our former Commissioner McQueen came in, and she really she really looked at STEM and she knew the advantages of it, and then kind of gave us the okay to develop that STEM strategic plan. So that STEM strategic plan really is what got our momentum going here in Tennessee, and our partnership with the TSIN is, like Brandy said, phenomenal. We really couldn't do this without them. They're our boots on the ground, and so we've done some amazing things. But I want everyone to know really where the department stands. We truly understand the benefits of STEM and computer science education in Tennessee. We're working hard to really expand this. We have the backing of our Commissioner, Penny Schwed, and as well as the governor. So the governor absolutely is in our corner with this. He has provided funding through the Future Workforce Initiative to help make this happen. And so we're just really excited to be able to share with you all that we've been able to do. So this slide really is a slide from code.org. And so they have 9 policies that they kind of look at to see how prepared a state is in computer science in comparison to the rest of the country. So just kind of going through this, we just completed our state plan. I know that it says in progress, but this will be updated this year. This is 2019. They have not updated this yet. So I just want to let you know that the state plan is complete. We were tasked under what was called Public Chapter 454 to kind of ask ourselves where we are in computer science, and then they gave us 6 different items that we needed to kind of look at and make recommendations for. And that policy and that report is actually on our website. And if you go to the website under Tennessee Department of Education, go to Educators. Under Educators, go to Academic Standards. Under Academic Standards, go to Computer Science. And that plan is at the very top. And so you'll be able to kind of access that to kind of see where we are going. The committee was made up of about 22 individuals. And what was great about this is it reached from one end of the state to the other end of the state. So all areas were covered. We had educators. We had industry individuals. We had code.org. We had College Board. We had post-secondary folks, we had the TSIN, so we really did cover a lot of different stakeholders, and so that's what makes this plan so great. And so the next step for this plan, really, all we were charged with was to kind of come up with some recommendations. And so there's some groups out there that will take this to the next step. We had to present it to the Speaker of the House and the Speaker of the Senate, so it's really up to them to kind of craft bills around this. So it'll be interesting and exciting to see what happens in the next couple years. So that's the state plan. Standards. So this one is really interesting. We really do have state standards, as you probably all know. Of course, we have the K-8 digital readiness standards that came out kind of as a soft launch last year. And then, like Brandy said, we're doing the trainings, and we'll talk more about that here in a few minutes. So we're definitely covered K-8. And then, of course, we have our CTE computer science standards as well. So we've got standards, as you all know, in coding and networking, web design, and cybersecurity. So I'm working with code.org to get this one updated as well, to say that we definitely do have standards. Same with funding. And so I just mentioned this before. We absolutely have the governor's backing when it comes to STEM and computer science, and it's really exciting. And I really think it stems from his background and where he came from in industry. He absolutely sees the need for that, critical thinking and the problem solving, the collaboration skills, and then also to the computer science skills. So we see people like Amazon coming into Tennessee. One of the very first things that they ask about is, where are you in computer science? Because they're very interested to see where their pipeline is coming from. And so the governor is very well even aware of this graphic from code.org, because Amazon did share this with him. So, kind of going back to the funding piece, the Future Workforce Initiative, he has outlined monies allocated for us to be able to do these trainings in computer science and do these STEM trainings, things like that. So we're happy to say, even with a new revised budget after COVID and after the tornadoes that hit Nashville, the funding still remains in place. So that goes to show you just how important it is to our state. Certification, we have right now 2 avenues really to teach computer science. If you teach computer science K-8, the digital readiness standards, right now we just, anybody who teaches math, science, that goes through the training can go ahead and teach it. We do have a computer science endorsement in Tennessee. I will tell you, not many people have done this yet, just because it is new. It is endorsement 173. And the way you earn that is taking the practice test. Now, I'm very much understanding that this is a K-12 certification, and we're looking into different avenues to kind of break down those walls and those barriers that teachers do face with the certification piece. And so the employment standard is kind of like that first wall that we've tried to break through. So if you take the code.org training and you go through the entire year and successfully do all those trainings, then you're able to earn that employment standard. And that employment standard will give you the ability to teach all sorts of courses dealing with computer science. So not only the AP Computer Science Principles, not only the middle school digital readiness standards, but even our CTE courses. So we're talking about coding, we're talking about mobile app development, we're talking about web design and cybersecurity as well. So that's just another avenue that teachers can take. So we are in discussions. We are continuously looking at this. We know that there are barriers. So we're really trying to work hard and solve those barriers. I just got a message from a group in Texas who are asking me the same thing. So I'm hoping that it starts to kind of open up a national discussion on how we can solve this. Pre-service teacher prep, you'll notice that this is definitely outlined in the state plan. This is something that we need to really prepare our teachers. So kind of the foundational piece to this is any teacher who goes through pre-service teacher prep in Tennessee should be prepared to teach computer science in the classroom. And so that is one of the recommendations outlined in the state plan. State supervisor, this is kind of funny. According to code.org, I have to have computer science in my title. So even though I am director of K-12 programs and STEM initiatives, because I don't have computer science in that title, which would make my title extremely long, we don't have a dedicated state supervisor. But I really am that person. So anything you have questions on computer science or STEM, let me know. I'll be happy to help you out with that. I'll quickly go through these next 3. Require high school to offer It's outlined in the state plan right now. There's some recommendations around requiring high schools to offer some sort of computer science courses to their students. So just ensuring that students have access and equity within that space. The next one is the core graduation credit. It does count for math, for your fourth year math. And then the higher ed admission. So some states, the institutes of higher ed will allow this for admission purposes in lieu of maybe a math or science. We don't have that right now because every one of our post-secondary institutions really truly are independent of one another. Years ago when they were all under one umbrella, this probably would have been easier to kind of get a hold of. But again, there are some recommendations around this within the plan, but this one probably is one of the harder ones to really kind of navigate through. So you can kind of see the data. This data is old, to be honest with you. We have a much more increase in schools with AP programs. We have a lot more students taking those exams. And so this information is fairly old, but like I said, we have not updated it yet for 2020. And of course, the information is lagged by 1 year just to be able to get that information. So those points are on the side there. So I've talked kind of through this already about the policy landscape. So right now, AP Computer Science courses can substitute for a fourth year math towards graduation requirements. The state board did adopt these K-8 digital readiness standards, so that has been completed. These count for EPSO opportunities, the computer science courses, and of course, I just talked to an endorsement as well. Over this past year, so like I said, computer science is included in my position, and so that's something new, even though it's not in my title. And then we do have that computer science employment standard. It's located on the same website as, like I said, that state report is just right below there. So you can check out what that employment standard is all about. And then this year, we have actual training. Last year, Brandy and her team kind of led a pilot in that training. So we took that pilot, made some tweaks, and of course, that was in-person training, and with COVID, now it's all virtual training. So definitely had to make some tweaks with that. And I've already kind of talked through this. The coming soon is actually already completed. As of May, our task force provided recommendations for that statewide computer science education. And then, of course, we do have, right now, we're hoping for recurring funding. Right now, the Future Workforce Initiative is like in a phase 2. It has not been brought over to recurring funding, but we're working hard to make that a possibility. So on this PC 454, there are some things that we had to address. So, and we've kind of mentioned some of these before. So ensuring public high school students have access to at least one computer science course. I don't think that's a heavy ask, and we do have quite a few schools offering both the AP computer science and the CTE computer science, and so we're just making recommendation that every high school does that just for that access and equity piece. Integrate computer science into elementary education. That's really easy to do, especially with these digital readiness standards. That's one thing to keep in mind, that these digital readiness standards, and Brandy will touch on this in a minute, they are not independent of your everyday learning. They should be absolutely easy to be embedded into everything that you teach every day. And so that's the beauty of these standards. It's nothing in addition to. And I think that's one piece that I really would like for you to take away from this is whether we're talking about STEM, whether we're talking about computer science, we're really trying to be intentional to where it doesn't add anything to your plate, because that's the last thing educators want. Brandy and I were both educators, and every time a program came out, we were like, oh, we got to do this now. That's not how this works. So really, truly, we're really trying to make this very seamless and make it part of your everyday teaching, so it's not something in addition to. The next one is allow computer science completion to count as a core admission requirement. I just talked about that, how that's probably one of our most difficult ones because every post-secondary institution is really separate. So this is going to be kind of a heavy lift. Another ask was to develop ed prep program standards and requirements for computer science. Again, I mentioned that where any teacher who goes through an ed prep program in Tennessee will be able to teach computer science coming out of there. That was another ask. Increase the number of underrepresented student groups earning college credit in computer science while in high school, and that's through these EPSO and these opportunities. Again, it goes back to ensuring every high school offers computer science, and then ensuring opportunities for educators who teach computer science and to earn the computer science endorsement. Again, I know there's some barriers with that endorsement, and so we're looking at alternatives. We're working hard on that. Like I said, our first step is this employment standard, but I would expect over the next couple years, you'll see some other opportunities and some other ways to earn a computer science endorsement from the state. Any questions? Open up chat here. If you have any questions, I don't mind if you unmute yourself, but you may want to also just type it in the group chat if you need to. I don't see any specific questions. I think we can move on. But like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to just put those in the chat. We've got different times throughout the presentation that we can stop and address those questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, I just want to commend Deborah's efforts at the state level to really push computer science and make it a priority and put it in front of the state administration and the governor's office. She does a fantastic job with that. And like she said, they really do value it. So her partnership and her leadership is much appreciated. Okay, so we're going to shift gears a little bit and jump into the standards training itself, what it was designed to do, what teachers are expected to learn. And really reiterating Deborah's point, this isn't an in addition to, but it's more of a strategy to enhance the content that you're already teaching. So we're really trying to show teachers how to use computer science and computational thinking as an entry point to the content you're already having to cover. We definitely don't want it to be, another thing that you have to take in, but more of a tool in your toolkit for how to make learning relevant and authentic and meaningful for your kids. So the workshops for this summer did, due to the pandemic, have to go virtual, much like this conference here. So we've made adjustments for that. And I do think the learning progression is still really meaningful, and we still have opportunities to connect with the facilitators if you have questions, because we didn't want to leave that opportunity out of the training. So there are 3 grade banded trainings, so K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8. And we also have counselor and administrator sessions. So they're much shorter, whereas the grade banded trainings take about 8 to 9 hours, I think about 8 hours to complete. The counselor and admin sessions take 2 to 3. And it's more of an entry point for them in thinking about framing computer science, how they're recruiting students to go into computer science courses, because we know female students of color aren't always recruited into those courses. So it's just giving them an additional lens for how to make computer science meaningful to all of their students, and that all students can do this and should be encouraged to, because as you see, it's connected to all of the growing fields within Tennessee. So the training itself was designed by some of our code.org certified facilitators, as well as current classroom practitioners. And we really just wanted them to design a learning progression that shows how to use those standards into current lessons and activities that you're already teaching. And they did that through a mix of plugged and unplugged activities. And then for the counselors and administrators, really, how can they support the teachers at the building level? How can they get parents, up to date on what computer science is and why it's important for their kids, and just supporting that effort at the building level. So the training itself is all online. We actually have a second we had the first round of training in the month of June, so we just closed that out, and we are opening up a second round of training. And I do have a link for you guys if you are interested towards the end to register for the course. So the course is open for a month, the entire month of July. It's self-paced, it's online. You can complete it anytime within the month of July. We're using the online platform Moodle, which I know a lot of educators are probably familiar with. A lot of post-secondary institutions use that. Basically, we send you a link to set up your Moodle account, and then you can access all of the course content. There are virtual PLC options, like I mentioned, with the facilitators, just so you have that opportunity to ask questions. I know a lot of times working through self-paced online work and you don't have the opportunity to ask that one question that may clarify something a little bit more for you isn't always helpful. So we wanted to be sure to include that. And then the teachers that complete the progression of learning will receive 8 hours of professional development credit. So we actually submit those certificates to the teachers directly, and that can count towards their informal hours for licensure renewal. So if you're not familiar with the standards, there are 6 strands. The first 5 that are in white there are really everyday activities that students are going to be engaging in when using technology and computer science practices and principles. And the strand in blue, the coding and computer programming strand, that's the most specific strand to actual computer science tasks. So that's what we focused on within this training, because that's probably the one teachers may or may not have the most familiarity with. So we wanted to get them into that strand so they really understood the coding and computer programming standards and tasks that students would need to do to master those standards. And if you haven't taken a look at the standards document yet, it's a really great outline as far as the progression of understanding. So this is the communication and collaboration strand, and it gives you the standard there. But if you look at the grade levels, you're really introducing this topic at the kindergarten level. You're reinforcing it in 1st and 2nd grade. And then students are going to be mastering that specific skill in 3rd through 8th grade. Now, that's not the same progression for all of the standards. Some it's introduction through K through 4, reinforce in 5, 6, and master in 7, 8. But I like the way that they laid that out so you can kind of see why we're introducing things so early. And then that last column within the standards document has examples to ELA, math, science, and social studies content standards, which I think is really important because these are the things that you're having to cover already. And here's an opportunity to incorporate computer science within that. So we wanted to really dig deep into the origin of the standards, where they were crafted from and why they're important. And that really aligns and connects with the K-12 computer science framework. So this is really similar to the K-12 science framework, if you're familiar with that, talking about the science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts and why they are so important to the new science standards for Tennessee. Similarly, for these computer science standards, we looked at the computational thinking practices. So there are 7 practices, and what they're saying that these are the things students should be engaging in the classroom to really master computational thinking. So we used that as a guide when developing this training so you could see the connections between the two. So the standards training itself, the areas of focus are first to explore computer science, computational thinking, and digital readiness. What are those 3 things? What do they mean? Because they're very different. And that's where the digital readiness standards and then the K-12 computer science framework come into play. Teachers are actually deconstructing standards, so they're looking at the 6th strand, the coding and computer programming strand for their grade band, and then connecting those computational thinking practices to the standards. And then we have a ton of activities for the teachers to do. So we start with Unplugged, which does not require technology because we know one of the barriers to implementing computer science can be technology access for students and teachers. But then there are plugged activities as extensions. So if you do have access to those materials, if your school is one-to-one, you can have examples that you can integrate in your classroom for your grade bands. And then the last piece is implementation planning. We want the teachers to walk away with a lesson or an activity that they can implement within the first 9 weeks of school. So that last piece is really digging into what they're planning to teach for the first 9 weeks and how can they create a CS infused activity to go along with that. So some additional resources in addition to the training itself. So on our website, we do have digital readiness lesson plans. So you can see we have agriculture, manufacturing, but for elementary, middle, and high school, we have digital readiness lessons. And these were actually created by teachers in the field last year. They collected student work samples that are a part of the lesson plans, which I think is going to be really helpful for a teacher to see what it could look like for a student mastering the standards. So please check those out. You can download them. So there's elementary, middle, and high school. And then we also created a series of, I guess you could call them posters around the computational thinking practices. So these are on the digital readiness webpage on our website. You can download, there are 7 of them. It talks about the practice itself, what it looks like in the classroom, so what are students actually doing. And then it gives a sample student task that you can use directly or maybe mirror to create your own task. And then there are online resources that align to that specific practice. And the feedback that we've gotten from teachers is that they are printing these out, they're putting them up as posters, so they can refer to them, you know, as they're going through the computer science coursework, especially for the middle grades. And then the last piece that I wanted to share before questions and then giving you the registration link is we do have a CSTA Tennessee chapter. The website there to register if you are interested. And Stephanie, I'm sure you'll send these slides out so they can have access later. But please join the chapter if you're interested. The dues are $10, annual dues. And we're really looking to build a strong statewide network of computer science teachers. And I think it can be difficult for elementary teachers to identify as a CS teacher, but they are. And the way that these standards are written and the way that the training shows how it's integrated to what you already teach really builds that identity as a computer science teacher. So please, if you are interested, join. That is open currently. All right. So that was a quick, fast, deep dive into the training itself and then other opportunities. So we'll pause for questions, and this link is to register for the digital readiness training that actually start tomorrow. So if you're interested and want to jump on, I cannot promise that we have, depending upon the requests, I can't promise a spot, but we will do everything that we can to get you included if you're interested.
Thank you so much to both of you. That was a fantastic presentation and so many new resources that I think teachers will be really excited about. So if you have questions, go ahead and type those into the chat box and we'll start with a Q&A. But I have one question that I wanted to start with, and really this can be for both of you. But what have you seen in terms of really I guess maybe the biggest barriers to teachers integrating computer science into their classroom? And then what do you think is the most important aspect of the new resources that you're talking about today that will really help overcome that? And I think you touched on this somewhat in the presentation, but I just wanted to dive a little deeper into that.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective is, well, a couple things. One is the endorsement. I think teachers feel like they have to have the endorsement in order to teach, but there's different ways around this. So right now for the K-8 digital readiness, like we said, it should be embedded into your teaching K-5. The digital readiness standard 6 through 8 can really be taught as a standalone, like a rotated arts, like a rotation for arts type course. But right now, what we have for the endorsement is you don't have to get the 173. Right now, you just have to hold a valid teaching license. And we're doing that just to kind of break that barrier until we figure out that endorsement and making sure that it's of quality, making sure that, we don't want everyone to be boxed into that endorsement. So right now, it's kind of open to K-8 teachers on their teaching license, teaching math, science, things like that. The employment standard is helping with the high school courses. So if you take the code.org training for the year, you'll get that employment standard, and that will open up the window then to even teach our CTE courses. But a lot of our CTE courses even have endorsements if you're endorsed math and science as well. So that's like the first barrier. I think the second barrier has always been training, and I think we're trying to overcome that. I think we are successfully overcoming that. And Brandy, I'll pass it off to you with these trainings that we're doing with the TSIN, not only the code.org trainings, but these digital readiness trainings. And Brandy, how many people have actually signed up for the digital readiness? I mean, it's phenomenal. I don't know if you have the numbers as of today.
Around about off the top of my head. So for June, we had 500 licenses, if you will, for our Moodle course. And we filled that within, I want to say, 2 weeks. So teachers were really excited and interested. So that prompted us to open up the July training. And currently we have, I want to say it's close to 400. So we do have some room, and we've reached out to certain areas that we definitely want to get involved in the computer science trainings. So I feel like we'll have some room for the grade banded and the administrator and counselor sessions for you all if you're interested. I just don't know what that number is.
In the chat, Brandy, I just saw a question pop up. It was a high school teacher asking if the training for the digital readiness standards would be beneficial for high school teachers. And my first thought is, I think it's always great to know where your students are coming from in order to then kind of, not only meet where they're at, but then, take it a step further. But do you have any thoughts on that as far as training for, I know they're not K-8 teachers, but what are your thoughts about high school teachers?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, time constraints that you have. Definitely, it's good to see where your students are coming from, especially if you're teaching those computer science or STEM courses in high school, because that'll give you an idea of what they should know and how to prep and do a framework for your course. I really just think if you're passionate about it and you want to learn more about that for the K-8 standards, absolutely, definitely can't hurt. And I know that there are activities, strategies, tools that'll be transferable to the high school classroom.
Yeah.
Are there any oh, sorry, I was just going to say too, are there any other trainings you recommend for high school teachers?
Yeah, I was just going to say the code.org training that Brandy offers is definitely perfect for those high school teachers.
Mm-hmm. And so that training, it is a year-long commitment. There are 9 different touch points throughout the year. Starts with a 5-day summer training, and then 4 trainings throughout the academic years, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring. But it gets them really well versed in not only the code.org curriculum, but specific like coding languages. And I believe they actually get to select the language that they do a deep dive into. And applications for that open in the spring, so usually February to March. Sometimes it'll lead into April, but it's best to apply for that early on. And there's actually an administrator component to that where they have to complete a survey that says that they will offer a computer science course for that upcoming academic year. And that's really just part of code's requirements that this will be implemented immediately with students. There are a couple of other trainings, and Stephanie, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I've got a list of things that I've been exploring that I can send to you and you can share with everyone.
That would be great. There was another question regarding the access to the lesson plans that you showed, and I believe they were linked on the slide, the ones that are available through the TSIN site. Mm-hmm. So I'll share that out with everybody.
Yes, please. And then I wanted to go back to that barrier question. So I think that oftentimes teachers, especially the K-5 teachers, are so focused on literacy and numeracy because that's what they are told to focus on, that we don't always, identify as a computer science teacher or feel like there is enough time to do that. But what we're seeing is that teachers that incorporate the computer science strategies to teach those concepts, they really are seeing an increase in student understanding. So I would just encourage you, like, I know that there's that focus on literacy and numeracy, but incorporating computer science will build student skills all around.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see, do we have any other questions that anybody would like to ask related to the presentation specifically or more broadly for computer science education?
I want to mention too, I think communication is also a barrier, like not knowing what's out there. So Stephanie, what I will do is I'll send you a link later today or later this morning. Everyone should be signed up for the commissioner's newsletter and probably the PSIN's newsletter as well. So both newsletters, that will give you a lot of information as to what's going out as far as training, things like that.
Perfect. I'll share that with the slides. So one other question that I have in terms of the lesson plans that are available on TSIN's site, are there any in particular that you have really seen, just kind of spark that curiosity with students and really get them excited about computer science in particular?
Yes. So I have a 7th grader at home, and given we were doing virtual learning for March, April, and May, I wanted to supplement his learning with extra activities, which I don't know that he appreciated, but we did that. And the 6th through 8th grade digital readiness lesson plans, there's one specifically around the ocean and like atmospheric interactions and weather. And I was really surprised by how interested my 7th grader was in that. I mean, it even led to him like researching NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and other resources that they provide, which then led to an actual STEM virtual camp that he's going to participate in July. And I was just really surprised because that's never been something he's been interested in before. And we've heard too from teachers in the field that the 3-5 lessons around ecosystems have been really engaging for students too. So I think it really just depends on the interest of the kid, but there's a lot to choose from.
Thank you. And one other thing, in focusing on the K through 2nd grade students, what are really the primary aspects that you're trying to integrate for them, and then maybe just a couple of simple examples that help kind of share that so teachers better understand what kind of activities are available for them.
So just familiarity with the system, right? Like logging onto the computer, getting comfortable with using some of the different coding aspects. Some of the activities that they use, they're actually, and I'm not as familiar with the K2 as I am with 3-5 and 6-8, but they have, I want to say it's Ben Goes to Bat. That may be totally wrong, I'm sorry. But it's one of the required texts that they teach, and they talk about the decision-making process that he has to make and how it relates to the way computational thinking works. Yeah, that's probably wrong, but I believe it's Ben Goes to Bat. And then they also teach like just the way that you approach coding, you have to follow step-by-step instructions. So one of the activities is to create a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? To make a sandwich. And if you don't tell the computer exactly which step to make, it's not going to give you the end product that you want. So it's just introducing those concepts of algorithms and debugging and all of those things at the K2 level.
All right, so if there are any other questions, please enter them into the chat box. I have one last one. What do you think that we can all be doing, as teachers or educators in university systems to really advocate for computer science and help spread that message, not only throughout districts, but also with parents to help them really understand the importance of this?
So I know that our state has a lot of different tech councils around, and they're huge advocates, and they're wonderful stakeholder groups that have industry folks and post-secondary folks and people from the community in there, and they're a huge advocacy for computer science. And so I would suggest if you're a teacher, kind of partner with them to see what they can bring to your classroom. They could bring some industry individuals to your classroom. They can, maybe set up a parent night for you or do some sort of activity with your students. I think that's a great way to get that information out there.
And I said there's the organization in Shelby County, Code Crew. I know that works with a lot of the schools, bringing folks immersed in industry to work with the students. So I think that's a great resource. And it really is a workforce development initiative, because students that are well versed in computer science, they can apply that to any field, whether it's nursing or, I don't know, accounting. It doesn't have to directly connect to computer science. And then for parents, I would say for teachers, just raising that awareness and letting them know that this is an opportunity. This would be a great learning experience for your child, and it'll help them set them up for success in post-secondary. I just think that there's not a lot of awareness out there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any final questions before we wrap up? All right, well, we will, as I mentioned, we have recorded this session, so we will be cleaning it up and removing all the stuff off the front where I was messing everything up. And then we'll get it posted into our YouTube channel so that people can watch this later. We are also keeping track of questions that have been asked and are developing FAQ lists from all of the sessions this week. So we will be sharing those through our website as well. And as I mentioned, we'll also be posting the slides from each of the sessions, and I will be sending out today an email to all of the participants so that you have the slide deck as well as the additional links that we were discussing. So I just want to say thank you so much to Deborah Knoll and Brady Stroker. This was a fantastic set of presentations and so informative. I'm really excited about all of the resources that are available and the focus in our state on computer science. So with that, I guess if there are no more questions, then we will just say thank you very much. We have appreciated you sharing your time with us today.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.